What's going on, guys? It's Eli. That's right. Vlog number 200. Yes, vlog number 200. We've reached to 200 vlogs. That's awesome, and that's something, don't you think? But, yeah. Also ignore, incoming traffic, But that's right, vlog number 200, and yes, you read the title of this vlog. You know what's happening. As of this recording, well, it's Tuesday, and this will be happening tomorrow. Me and my dad, we are going to be attending something that I've been looking forward to for quite a while, because at the Clay Center, there's going to be a screening of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. But also, not only that, William Shatner, a.k.a. Captain James T. Kirk, is going to be there. And that's awesome. And also, I want to give a shout-out to anybody who has attended the event with the screening of Wrath of Khan and Shatner being there. There have been a couple of YouTube videos of people going to this event, of this event happening in their area. So, yeah. And now it's finally the event is coming here in West Virginia. I'm really looking forward to this. And just seeing the one and only William Shatner, the first starship captain, that's something, because, you should know that me and my dad, we have been huge fans of Star Trek. We're Trekkies. That's the name of, the nerds, for them being Star Trek fans. But yeah, this is going to be really awesome, and this will be my second time seeing Wrath of Khan on the big screen. God, that was the first time I saw Wrath of Khan on the big screen was, around the same time when Star Trek Beyond came out. Wow. And for my dad, I think, yeah, he saw it in theaters when it came out in 1982. So, yeah. If I'm correct, yeah, this will be his third time seeing Wrath of Khan on the big screen. But yeah, being in that Clay Center theater and that projection screen they have, that's going to be awesome. And tonight, I'm watching Star Trek The Motion Picture. Well, because why not? Because I'll be seeing Wrath of Khan, and, not to mention, seeing Shatner in person. Okay, guys, many hours later, I had finished watching Star Trek The Motion Picture, and I had dinner. Here's a picture of it. And here's the aftermath. Yeah, so, yeah, that was a good meal that I had, for dinner. So, yeah, I am still looking forward to, what's coming tomorrow, because of the William Shatner event, them screening Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and afterwards, okay, so probably not, but I didn't give it full detail, because what's going to happen is, they're going to screen the film first, and then, after that's done, then Shatner comes out and, he does the talking and he'll answer everybody's questions. Now, here's the thing. Speaking of the Q&A, him answering questions, I thought, and I know, and yeah, my dad thought this too. I'm sure everybody thought that the Q&A would be just like any other ordinary Q&A. Everybody in line, going up to the microphone, and you ask your question. But no, this is going to be different. You are going to have to write your questions. And I know to any of you who got to see Shatner, any of you who attended this event, yeah, that's what happened. You write your questions in. And I know what my question's going to be. I know what it's going to be. It's basically what I'm going to ask Shatner is if he would have loved to do what was originally considered for the film a sword duel between Kirk and Khan, which that never came to be, especially since, at that time, schedulings with both Shatner and Ricardo Montalban, like, it was impossible, they just weren't able to get both of them, like, together on set, and because, well, Ricardo Montalban, he was doing Fantasy Island at that time, so there's some fun facts for you. So that would have been pretty cool if there was a sword fight, and if both of them ever came face to face, because they never do. They never do in the film. The only way they interact is, well, through the view screens and communications. That's pretty much it. So anyways, all right, jump cut now. And now, guys, it's time to go to sleep. Good night. So, I just woke up. Yep. And, yep. Today's the day. Okay, guys, many hours later, of course, Little Blue is with me. Mm-hmm. And we got McDonald's, and are you anxious for the Shatner event?
I am.
Seeing Captain Kirk himself in person,
And T.J. Hooker, and,
Boston Liquid?
Boston Legal.
Legal, right.
I can't remember his character's name in that. And then Bleep My Dad did. Bleep My Dad Says.
Yeah. I think the actual title with Bleep is Shit My Dad Says, I think. That's what I read.
That's what it is. That's what it means, yeah.
Yeah. And remember, Twilight Zone, of course.
Of course.
And a bunch of others. And you also know that he did some voice work as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
He did some voice work for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But anything else, you've enjoyed a bunch of other stuff from Shatner aside from Star Trek.
Oh, Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
That was, the episode, can't remember the title of the episode. You probably remember it.
Nightmare 20,000 Feet, of course.
Yes.
And he was in Nick of Time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those were great episodes, but Nightmare at 20,000 Feet was definitely my favorite.
Well, one of the most popular and one of the true Twilight Zone gem episodes.
Yeah, it was, for sure.
And what about, say, Boston Legal and T.J. Hooker,
I watched T.J. Hooker a little when I was, back in the 80s, not very much. Never watched Boston Legal, never saw an episode of Boston Legal.
Neither Shatner.
Yeah, I think I saw a couple of scenes with him in it, but I never watched that show. I never got into shows like that,
Yeah.
So, but it, I know it was popular. He was a popular character in it. So,
and that one film that Shatner was in, where, it looked like he was wearing almost like the gold uniform. Remember? Because I think Andy Griffith was in that too.
He was. Yeah, it was.
Andy Griffith was the villain.
It was called Pray for the Wildcats.
Right.
And it starred, basically, Andy Taylor, Mike Brady,
yeah,
and Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
And there was one other guy in it, but those were the three main ones. It was like Robert Reed that played Mike Brady in The Brady Bunch, Andy Griffith, of course, that played Sheriff Andy Taylor in my all-time favorite, The Andy Griffith Show, and of course William Shatner that played Captain Kirk. And they were on this cross-country motorcycle trip.
True.
And Andy Griffith turned out to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
And it was a face-off between him and Shatner, in the climactic scene. And,
right.
Of course, Shatner beats him. But
yeah,
it was a weird movie. It was a good movie. I remember watching it back in the 70s.
Yeah.
But it was also, it was weird because you had these guys together, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like Brady Bunch meets Star Trek meets Andy Griffith,
Yeah.
The Andy Griffith show.
Yeah, that's right, because some stars from Brady Bunch was in this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a good movie. I liked it. It was an ABC movie of the week. That's what it was. It was a made-for-TV movie. Very different.
True.
And they were part of an old motorcycle gang called the Wildcats.
Yeah, I know that there's motorcycle gang.
And they go out on this cross-country trip, and one of the wives of one of the members, in this group, literally says, she's watching them ride off, and she says, "Pray for the Wildcats." And that's how the title of the movie came to be.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
anyway, I don't know why I remember that so vividly, but I do. Because I was a kid when I watched that movie.
Well, you talked a lot of good detail about that film. So.
Yeah, I remember it. That's what's so weird. I remember a lot of details about it. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. But with all that being said, we're about to eat McDonald's, and we'll be on the way soon for the event.
Yeah,
Wrath of Khan and Shatner in person.
Yes.
That'll be awesome.
It
all right.
will.
Jump cut. Okay, guys. Here's a good shot of the Clay Center. Still anxious for this?
Still anxious.
Yep. Everybody, we could see everybody is arriving for this, and it's gonna be really awesome. And when we go inside, and they'll have that movie screen projection or something for Wrath of Khan, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that'll be pretty awesome. And when Shatner steps out, and when we put our questions in, and so on, it'll all be great. So,
yep.
Ready for this?
Ready for it.
Me too. So, jump cut now. Man, look at what they got in there.
Yep.
We're so close, aren't we?
Very.
The tickets right here are the tickets. Didn't get a chance to show them.
Yep.
And again, because William Shatner, officially appears on stage after the movie.
Yes, he does.
So, okay. There's no, say, introduction, here's William Shatner, enjoy the movie, he'll be back he'll be back in an hour. And such.
Right.
Nothing like that.
Right. He'll be on after the movie.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying, right? Yeah, there's nothing gonna be like that. They're doing the movie first, and then he officially comes out.
Exactly.
Yep. So, but that's the thing. He's going to he's going to look through everybody's questions while the movie runs.
Yes.
Right. So, okay. So there's that.
The management of these studios changes abruptly and quickly and frequently because if it's not making money, they say, well, somebody else can run it, maybe they can make us money. So they change very quickly. So the management between the time the series was canceled and about 6 years later, management at least changed 2 or 3 times. And they had long since forgotten anybody named Roddenberry, and certainly Shatner. Who? So here's what I think I know. They're sitting around a table, and they're saying, Star Wars is making billions. What do we do? What do we got? How can we make billions? And there's this little guy with coffee. Comes in, he's putting the coffee on, and he said, there was that show on some time ago called Star Trek? And the man said, Star Trek? Yes. I said, well, no, Paramount made Star Trek. We made Star Trek? Yeah, no, it was a Star Trek, and it was nice, and they had this wonderful actor named Shatner on it. So they said, Star Trek, right. Let's make a movie about Star Trek, and we'll make billions. And we'll make a big movie. We'll get Robert Wise to direct it. Robert Wise was a great name in movies. He had edited. He was a great editor. He had edited Citizen Kane, which a lot of people think was the great movie, the best movie ever made. But especially the editor, and the editor chooses what you guys are going to, what the audience is going to see. So the editor is every bit as important on a movie as the writer, director, anything. I mean, the editor, they say that High Noon, which everybody knows High Noon, yes? Frame of reference. So the clock, tick, 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 tock, here from the bad guys? Where's the good guy gonna tick-tock, tick? That was editing. I'm told that the film was like an average Western until, and I don't know who it was that edited, kept punching to the clock. And all of a sudden you're feeling the time going by and time. So an editor is extremely important, and Robert Wise was a great editor before he became a great director. So now he's asked to do Star Trek.
Well, guys, what do we first have to say?
Well, it was very entertaining.
Yes.
The movie, of course, which I had seen probably 24 times, and that may be a conservative estimate.
Now, I said this in the vlog. If I'm correct, this was your third time seeing it on the big screen. Like the first time was when it came out in 1982. Then the second time was around the time when Star Trek Beyond was coming out. And now this time, is that correct?
Yeah, maybe a fourth time too. I don't know, but with Flashback Cinemas. Was it ever on Flashback Cinemas?
Yes, we saw that.
Okay, so then it would be three times.
That was when Star Trek Beyond was happening.
Yeah, that was the third time. So
tonight was the third time. Seeing it in the Play Center.
Exactly, and so Shatner himself, very entertaining. The man goes off on tangents with stories, but they're very entertaining. You're just sitting there waiting for him to you're trying to figure out where he's going with the story.
I know.
But his,
I know.
He gave a pretty good description of his space flight.
Yeah.
Not as detailed as I would have liked, but, he told it from a more emotional perspective.
I know.
And
I could tell that this was very serious,
Yeah, it's very, he talked about how fragile the Earth is, which, I don't know, I've got a little more faith in our Creator than that the Earth is a little more sturdy because it's been around for so long. But granted, we take a lot of things for granted, and I don't like to see animals become extinct.
Me neither.
I don't like to see pollution. I don't like to see trash. It's that kind of stuff bothers me,
True.
It really does, because we are polluting the Earth, and I think there's a point to be taken from his story that while the Earth's been around for probably millions of years, it's we're doing damage to it. We really are.
True. And people are doing something about it.
Yeah, but not enough. There, awareness needs to be raised. It's just being responsible, being if more people were conservationists, and really took care of nature and cleaned up after themselves, it'd be a lot better place to live.
Yeah. Now, okay, so about the screening of Wrath of Khan, it was amazing because even say when it started and with the logo show and everybody was just applauding, a standing ovation, and when the credits, the names were on screen too.
Right.
And especially when Ricardo Montalban's name came up. There were a few cheers. I was expecting, but there weren't. I was thinking there'd be some cheers for a couple of scenes, maybe for Kirk's entrance. There was kind of. I was also expecting one for Khan. I was also expecting an applause for when Kirk shouted "Khan."
Yes.
Were you thinking that too?
I was thinking there would be a big applause, but there was.
No.
I could hear some. I could hear some people react to it, but not with the emotion that I thought they might.
Somebody I saw a few people in front of us waving their hands up or something. What were they doing?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea.
But you saw that too, did you?
Yeah.
Of course, everybody laughed at some funny moments in the film.
Yes.
Of course. And I expected this would get an applause too, of course. When the credits rolled, the movie was over. Everybody applauded.
Of course.
But they didn't, it was funny, they didn't roll the rest of the credits.
Yes.
They just got right into the Q&A. And that was really cool. They played a montage of Shatner's other work.
Right.
You know, they didn't even show any clips of Believe My Dad Says.
You know, I noticed that.
Yeah, I was expecting that. Like,
maybe that's not one of his
best, top,
happier moments or something. I don't
top
know.
best works. I don't know.
I thought it was a great show.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
I watched
too.
it. I laughed.
It was hilarious.
It was.
Also, yeah, and of course, just seeing Shatner come walking right onto the stage.
Yeah, he moves around a lot. You know, I mean, he's like 90 years old, and he moves around just back and forth. And paces the stage. So he's got a lot of energy for somebody.
Yeah.
You know, his age.
Now, I would kind of do something like that too. Like sometimes I'd get up and walk, but you know, but like, yeah, like okay, hey. First thoughts, like just seeing Shatner with our very own eyes when he walked out. What was that like for us?
It was very cool. You know, he's
well. This is Shatner we're talking about. Like you grew up watching Star Trek, and
of course,
yeah,
and to get to see him, you know, in the flesh like that, it's
living, breathing person.
It's you know, you're a little starstruck.
Yes, exactly. I was like before he came on, I got a little bit of nervousness in me, you know, just seeing somebody in person, you know. What about you?
Exactly.
Were you getting nervous too?
Oh no, I wasn't nervous at all. I was maybe a little anxious, but I wouldn't say I was nervous at all. No.
Yeah. Well, and some of the like, what was I gonna say? So he told like some funny moments between him and the audience, you know.
Yep.
Like some people were like coughing and sneezing, you know.
Yeah,
that was funny.
He'd call them out, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. Also, the moderator for Shatner, like, you know, that story he talked about where, you know, he wanted Shatner to do a signing at his comic book store.
Yes.
Yeah.
His manager said we can make that happen, and when he told him how much it was going to cost, he was like, "Who else you got?" Because he clearly couldn't afford Shatner to come in.
Yeah, and that was very sweet of Shatner that, hey, he wanted him to be his moderator.
Exactly.
Yeah, very sweet of him.
Yes.
And also, we'd like to point this out because, well, I mean, they can hardly, how does it look, you know, like...
you can see it fine.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to be sure. But, okay, fortunately, he didn't get to answer all the questions.
Yeah.
Nor mine and yours.
No, yeah, and ours might not even... Oh, sorry. I'm not that sleepy. I don't know why I'm yawning.
Well, you know, it is starting to get late.
Yeah, it's after 11 o'clock. But he...
yes?
He only answered, I think, 3 questions, if that.
Yeah.
Maybe just 2. But, you know, his line when the person asked him, you know, the one person... asked if he wore boxers or briefs.
Oh, so that's because I was thinking like I was thinking like that's pants, you know.
That's underwear.
Underwear, jeez.
Yeah,
okay.
boxers or briefs, underwear. So, and then he said, and his response was
like who would quickly? I was like, who would ask him something like that? Just, I mean, why not?
And then his response depends.
Depends.
Which
everybody lost it.
Which, as we all know, is an adult diaper. And him being 90 years old, you would think,
okay,
maybe he would wear that since, you know, somebody that age might have bladder control issues. He probably doesn't.
Yeah.
He seems to be, even though he's kind of stocky, he seems to be in really good shape.
Yeah. Again, he looks like he's maybe in his late 50s or 60s.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's so amazing.
I know. And
good genes.
What?
He has good genes, obviously.
Yeah, and him, you know, walking and moving, that's good.
Yeah.
So again, when he said it depends, like everybody lost it.
Yeah.
You lost it, I lost it.
That was the greatest line of the night, I thought.
Depends.
Yeah.
That's my best, like, Shatner.
That was just quick wit on his part.
Yeah.
So.
And also talking about, I think he had 2 stories about Ricardo Montalban and DeForest Kelley.
As he said, remembers, Ricardo Montalban.
That's how Ricardo himself.
Yeah.
Ricardo Montalban.
Exactly.
So yeah, there you go. You got to do that. Ricardo Montalban.
Yes. Ricardo Montalban.
So like that story of Ricardo, what was that about? Of like, you know, he just
he was talking about on the set of Wrath of Khan. You know, a lot of people thought that was a chest plate he wore.
Yeah, but
it wasn't.
That debate.
That was his chest. The whole
cast has confirmed this.
That was his pectoralis muscles. I mean, that was his, and he's.
God.
Shatner would go up and ask if he could touch his pecs. When
people just let it go and face the fact that it's real.
Yeah, I know.
And also, well, I think Ricardo was at one point in a wheelchair. Not correct?
That really shocked me.
That was during Wrath of Khan?
Yes.
Jeez.
I think so. I mean, he had kind of when he would walk, he would almost have a hop. And you see it in Wrath of Khan when he walks over to, when he says, allow me to introduce you to SETI Alpha 5's only indigenous life form. And when he's walking over to that set to, when they reveal the SETI eel in that tank, he's kind of walking like, he's kind of swinging his leg, which is indicative of someone who has hip problems.
True.
And evidently where he danced so much as a young boy and a teenager, he just wore his hips out.
Yeah.
So, and in later years, he was in a wheelchair. So, all the time.
But he managed to, be Colin and do that film like a boss. So,
Oh, yeah.
So there's that, and there's also that funny, story of DeForest Kelley. Shatner pulled a joke on DeForest.
Yes, talking about the fact that they were on a set, they were working at night.
This have to be for Star Trek V?
No. No, this was during the series.
Oh, the series.
And he said DeForest came up to William Shatner, and he told him, he said, I'm really getting worried because I'm starting to forget names. I'm starting to forget things. He said, and I'm an actor. I have to remember my lines. He says I'm starting to forget names and things.
Yeah.
And Shatner was like, you're all right. Just everybody gets forgetful. And then they're on the set one day, and he's going to get a bagel for breakfast, and he puts it in a toaster. And Shatner gets the idea. He has Leonard Nimoy distract DeForest Kelley, and he's like, "Oh, I've got something in my eye. Can you help me?" And DeForest Kelley's helping Leonard Nimoy he has something in his eye.
Nimoy was in on the joke, obviously.
He was in on the joke. He was distracting DeForest Kelley. William Shatner walks up, steals the bagel out of the toaster, and runs off with it. And then DeForest Kelley comes back, waiting for his bagel to pop up, and the thing pops, and there's nothing in it. So he's aggravated. He's like, I can't believe it. I know I put bagels in there.
I thought that bagel was in there.
And he puts another bagel in the toaster. And again, Shatner gets Leonard Nimoy to distract him, and he again steals the bagels out of the toaster. And this time,
so mean.
He walks up and it pops, and nothing comes out. He turns around and looks, and he sees Shatner standing there. He was trying to eat some of that bagel to hide it.
And then, my DeForest Kelley impression, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, basically, that's exactly what he said.
Well, that's what Shatner said.
Yeah. So he told some funny stories. He really did. He would go down rabbit holes. I thought I went down rabbit holes when I told stories. Man, he really goes down rabbit holes. But he always brings it to a close. Yeah. And he ties everything together. So he's he's really sharp.
He is, yeah. And that story with DeForest Kelley, we don't know what episode they were filming. All we know is about that story.
Right, exactly.
This was during when they were filming the original series. That's it. So
right. So there's he was just talking about the fact that DeForest Kelley was a Southern gentleman.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised he didn't say anything about George Takei. In a way. but I guess
none of the other actors.
He stays away from that subject, you know.
Yeah.
And I heard some people murmuring. There was a question about who was your favorite actor to work with on Star Trek.
Yeah, I could have sworn I heard somebody say George.
You may have, but I heard people kind of go, oh, ho, 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 you know, kind of like, what's he going to say?
I was kind of in on it too, you know.
But
like, who was the best?
Well, I was afraid he was going to say something negative about George Takei, but he didn't, and I think he takes the high road. It wasn't
necessary.
I think he takes the high road on that.
Like,
I really
you know, at least, you know, I think he was respecting George for that. So
yeah, it's just best to let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah, and also that story about Star Trek V. You know what? Like, I think like he would have considered having Star Trek V be screened. Like that, I think so. But Star Trek V.
Yeah, which I like Star Trek V.
Yes, I do too. It's fun to watch.
It is fun to watch.
That's what I say. It's fun to watch.
It has my favorite piece of music in it of any Star Trek movie.
Starts off with the main Star Trek theme by Jerry Goldsmith, and then
goes into
the music that plays when Kirk is climbing.
Right, it's called the name of that piece is called "The Mountain," and it is absolutely one of my favorite pieces of classical music of all time.
Yeah, by Jerry Goldsmith.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, Jerry Goldsmith gets it done, He's like, he's one of those composers like John Williams and Danny Elfman.
Well, and not to go down a rabbit hole, but if you listen closely, when you watch
Wrath of Khan.
No, when you watch...
I thought you were going to talk about...
If you listen... Okay. Watch... Here, anybody watching this right now and listening...
Well, obviously they're watching.
If you're a Star Trek fan, go and watch Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Right.
Then...
The fifth one.
Then watch Star Trek First Contact with the Next Generation crew. That was the first official motion picture of the Next Generation crew. Fully. Like
Generations, it's half.
It's half.
Well, it's basically like the handing of the torch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but
that the Next Generation crew take on the Star Trek film industry.
Right.
Yeah,
so
that's what it is.
Watch Star Trek V, Final Frontier, then immediately watch Star Trek First Contact and listen closely to the music. You can hear where Jerry Goldsmith recycled some of that music. He changed it up slightly, but there are passages in that movie.
Aside from the main Star Trek theme.
Right. There are pieces of music. One piece in particular is when they the main deflector dish, when they release it, and when Worf is standing there with a phaser rifle. Assimilate this. That piece of music right there, taken from Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
In which part, like in Star Trek V?
Just different parts. I can't tell you specifically, but
sorry about that.
That's all right, but it's there. You just have to listen.
Camera malfunction.
That's all right.
That's fine.
But you have to listen for it, and you will hear it. And you'll recognize it immediately. You'll say, oh my gosh, that's very similar to the music from Star Trek V.
I'll have to listen.
Yeah.
Well, another good noticeable thing is Jerry Goldsmith, the Klingon theme he wrote for the motion picture, he reused it many times.
Oh yeah, it's been reused. I mean, it's been reused in Next Generation episodes when the series was on.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I've heard it.
And I'll bet
but it was done differently at times.
And I'll bet you they end up using it during season 3 of Picard when
I hope so.
Michael Dorn rather.
Michael Dorn is Worf.
Michael Dorn makes his appearance.
That's really, speaking of which, that's something, because this had just happened. Seen Star Trek 2 and with William Shatner, and very soon, season 3 of Picard will happen.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk about, a lot of Star Trek stuff happening in February.
A lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah. And also, Shatner brought up that story of what was considered for Star Trek V from the beginning. About God and the devil.
Oh yeah, his idea.
And an author.
Yeah.
Yeah, which he can't remember. He doesn't remember the name of the authors. Never camera malfunction. Jeez. Okay, I'm just gonna have to do this. but he can't remember. He doesn't remember the name of the author's name, but like the author at one point was involved in this, but then left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, he because they couldn't agree. He couldn't agree with Paramount. Paramount wanted to own the rights. And because it was Star Trek, and he said, "Well, I'm writing the book." He says, "You can't own my book," and they just couldn't come to an agreement.
And they couldn't make it easy.
Right.
Jeez.
So
that there was that, and also like I don't remember this, but Shatner talked about like there was going to be scorpions or something. He said something about scorpions, but also there was going to be rocks thrown and fire, and there was going to be the rock monster.
Yep. Which, if they had perfected CGI at that point, it was still, I think, in its experimental stages or just very early development. It hadn't even been used yet.
Not quite yet.
Then
CG still got started.
Right, but it would have. I think it would have been. I think it would have been a different movie. In fact, I remember reading where someone had said that they had seen the original script and said that if Shatner could have made that movie the way it was supposed to have been done,
right,
it would have been a much, much better Star Trek movie. It would have been epic. But because of budget constraints, Paramount kept cutting his budget. He kept having issues and challenges, and he made the best movie he could at the time.
Yep, the best he could do.
Yep. Which again, I think it's a good movie in its own right.
And again, fun to watch. Yeah, and of course, as we all should know, Star Trek 6 made things much better. For the movie industry of Star Trek to continue.
It did, and as it went out on
it went out with a bang. This for it being the last film for the original crew.
Very serious.
Yep.
Very serious, very very dramatic. Kirk and McCoy were in peril, and they made it through.
That's true.
It's it has one of the coolest openings of any movie ever. I'll say that.
Well, for one thing, the main music, the music for the opening credits, for one thing, and then the explosion of the Praxis. But anyways, but it's like Shatner talked about space, and also, like, the questions we had for Shatner, well, I've explained this earlier in the vlog, as you guys, saw that, my question for Shatner was about, like, the sword, like, if he would have loved for the sword duel to happen, the sword duel between Khan and Kirk, and your question, what was it again?
My question was, describe...
I know I've probably talked about it, but you go ahead still.
Describe the feeling when you are going from max G's on liftoff to zero gravity. Describe that feeling.
Okay,
and I've heard one former Apollo astronaut, Gene Cernan, describe it. And it's, max G's, all this pressure coming down on you, basically feels like an elephant sitting on you. And then all of a sudden, he said, it feels like when you're in a car and you go over a dip.
Yeah.
And you feel that like you're falling, that brief, like, sort of like when you're going down a dip on a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
That's the feeling of weightlessness. And I've experienced zero G in a plane, and I got to tell you, to me, it was not a comfortable sensation.
Like, because again, like the stomach, like, it felt like your stomach dropped, right?
Well, kind of, but also really, you feel like you're trying to catch yourself, and you can't.
Yeah.
And you're just floating, and it's just. It was not. It didn't make me sick. It was not a pleasant. It was a very unsettling feeling. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Now, if I went into space, I'd have to get used to it or puke my guts out. Both.
Yeah, true.
Because a lot of astronauts encounter space sickness when they go into space.
Oh yeah. And by the way, Mission Space at Epcot.
Yes.
Like that has the same kind of feel too, right? Like.
It does. You're pulling about 2 Gs. He said they pulled about 5 Gs on Blue Origin on their flight.
Yeah.
Shatner described it. He said it was about 5 Gs. That's quite a G load. But you have to consider the fact that a lot of astronauts, fighter pilots, they'll hit 9 or 10 Gs, and but they're wearing, of course, as I'm sure they did. You have to wear a pressure suit because otherwise you'd pass out. You lose consciousness.
Yep. And also that story, start off talking about with the success of Star Wars, and with Paramount, like saying they have something like that too, Star Trek.
Yeah. When they were sitting around talking, and the one thing he told, the one thing he told that I didn't quite. It was like he missed the timeline when he was telling this story, because I've read the story. I know how it goes. That Paramount was getting ready to launch a second network.
Yes, like that. This was in the Star Trek Summit.
It was going to be NBC2.
Yeah. And after the cancellation of Star Trek, this was like afterwards Paramount,
They were putting together another Star Trek series, and Leonard Nimoy was not going to be in it.
No.
They brought in another actor.
At that time, Nimoy was not interested.
To play, right. They brought in another actor to play the Vulcan first officer.
Yeah.
Shatner was still going to be in it.
Yeah, he was up to doing it again.
And they had all this, and they had the rest of the original cast assembled except Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to go forward with this new Star Trek series on this new network.
And was there a reason, Nimoy was just not interested?
I'm not really sure. I think he was just
that's never been
established. In his career, why he was trying to distance himself from Spock.
Yeah. And that thing, I am not Spock.
Yes, exactly. He wrote the book called I Am Not Spock. But
how he felt at that time.
So what happened in the meantime? Star Wars came out.
Yep. well, here's another thing. Here's another thing. As Shatner said, Paramount was they were going to do a show, but then they wanted to do a feature film, and they went back and forth for many years. Get ready, no, we're starting over, we're starting, we're stopping, we're starting, we're stopping.
This is what happened.
That's what Shatner said.
When Star Wars came out, they completely abandoned the series, because the series was going to look much like it did in the 60s. They didn't have all these special effects like Star Wars, and they're looking at this movie and they're like, we can't do this. It'll look ridiculous after this comes out. So then
it looks much better.
Then they sit down and they figure out, how can we do this? We've got to do a motion picture. And that's when they decided to do the motion picture. And
when Robert Wise stepped in.
Robert Wise was not interested. And his wife said, you have to do it.
He did not know anything about Star Trek.
No.
I don't think there was anything said that he was not interested. He just didn't know Star Trek. He didn't know Star Trek that well, but his wife knew, and she encouraged him to do it.
Yes.
And hey, with the success of Star Wars, it helped Star Trek get back into shape,
Yeah,
but also it made science fiction more popular again.
It did.
Well, and here's the thing. Star Wars is not just science fiction, it's space fantasy.
Yes.
And here's the thing. I also learned this, that, it saved Star Trek, and it brought iconic Looney Tunes character, Marvin the Martian, back into popularity, being one of the top best Looney Tunes characters.
And while, Star Wars helped resurrect Star Trek, Star Wars probably would not have existed without Star Trek.
No.
Because
and Lucas was a fan of Star Trek.
Yes. George Lucas was, and that there were a lot of elements that inspired him from Star Trek, to create. Star Wars.
I think he also did a good job. I think he would have known this too. He didn't want to rip off Star Trek.
No, he did something completely original
and fresh and new for space adventures. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes, that's what he did. But what was that you said again? He took some elements or something?
He took some elements from Star Trek that inspired him to do Star Wars.
Right.
Well, among other things, World War II dogfights that inspired him.
Flash Gordon.
Of course, Flash Gordon was another thing that inspired.
That was another thing
the whole concept behind the old movie serials that, years and years ago, people would go to the movies on the weekend and they would see a continuation. There would be a different serial each. They called them serials, SERIAL, and they were. It was a series. It was just like going to the movie theater. It's like when you turn on the TV each week to watch a new episode of whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of that, you would go to the movie theater because TVs were,
But they stepped
there
in.
were no TVs back in back at the time of Flash Gordon. TVs didn't exist.
30s and 40s.
Well, they were there, but not many people had them.
Okay.
We'll say that they were. TV was invented early on, but
okay,
it was not a lot of people had TVs in the 40s.
Yeah.
But in the 30s, nobody had TVs, and
yeah,
they would go to the movie theater on the weekends, and they would see the continuing adventures. Flash Gordon,
Batman,
yeah,
Superman, Captain at that time being named Captain Marvel, then Shazam.
Yes,
so much more.
There were a lot of different serials,
exactly,
that were at the movie theaters. So there's that.
Yep. I remember. Okay, so as I said, like Star Wars helped science fiction, become popular and so on.
Right.
Star Trek, Marvin the Martian, and so on. In fact, even Battlestar Galactica happened very later on after Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah, but again, I think, with all that being said, what an experience this was.
Great experience.
Yeah.
Loved it.
All the stories that Shatner told and the laughs he brought to us. Like, you know what? It's almost like he can be funny, like almost like, seems like a good comedian.
Yeah, that
is the thing with some actors, like especially like anybody at conventions.
He's got a quick wit. No question about it.
Yes, he does. But yeah, we are home now, and we're gonna be like tucking ourselves in and so on, getting a lot of rest, and look forward to what else happens. Another exciting event.
Another exciting event that'll be coming soon, I'm sure.
Yep, we'll keep our eyes open.
We will.
But any last things to say on what happened tonight and so on? Any last words?
It was a neat experience. I enjoyed it, and that'd probably be our once in a lifetime chance to see Shatner.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we got it.
Yeah, and I think he was like, wasn't he the first Star Trek actor we got to see in person, or the very first?
Most definitely, yes.
Do you think?
Yeah.
And that is something, and for it being Shatner.
Yeah, exactly. For it to be Shatner, and to not only that, you have to consider the fact. Yes, you're looking at the man who played Captain Kirk that's on stage, but you're also looking at an astronaut, a guy who's been in space, who has literally been in outer space.
Exactly.
That's the kicker.
This guy, he's a legend.
Yep.
And he's done so much.
Yes.
God. And to come up to going into space and being an astronaut, that is something.
Yes.
That is something.
Agreed.
And with that, I think that's the perfect place to end it there.
Yep.
So, and for me quickly, what an experience it was, and for us, hey, we're both Trekkies. So, thank you guys so much for watching, for this being the 200th vlog, and I'm glad that this was for the 200th vlog.
Altogether fitting and proper.
Exactly. So, last words.
Live long and prosper.
He says that for me. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys in the next video /vlog. Hope you enjoyed vlog number 200. Take care, peace out, and live long and prosper.